Operation Flinders is a program for young people at risk, children who've had a fairly rugged time of life. It's a program that gives them some faith and some hope in the future, an opportunity to achieve things that they would never have anticipated they could have achieved.
So my earliest memory of Mum getting Flinders off the ground was her working at Beafield Education Centre out at Gawler. And it was basically all the kids that had been excluded from all the mainstream schools, and this was their last stop. She was such a dynamic educator. But she went to Mawson High School, which was, back in those days, was deemed as one of the hardest, toughest high schools. Didn't want to work with the easy kids because, well, what's the challenge in that type of thing?
Pam as a person, she was really caring about the people she worked with. She very much looked at the team concept in that we were the team, the Operation Flinders people, the staff that worked with, in and around her, and she really loved and cared for you. She had a presence around her, and without that presence, Operation Flinders would never have happened.
If she put her spell on you, that was it. You were enchanted by her, and whatever she asked, we would do.
She would say, "This is what I would like to achieve. I think you've got the ability to do it," and she'd leave you to do it, and she would trust you.
So I don't think that the concept of Operation Flinders happened overnight. I think she was brewing on it for a while. And I think certainly the Beafield aspect really tied it all together for her. And this was her last chance before they were just kicked out of education. She thought, well, these kids can't be lost to society. We can do something to help them. Instead of her having them in a classroom, which has got 4 walls, take them in the outback classroom, which has got the sky and the hills and the greenery. She was determined about what she wanted to do. She was committed to doing good things for young people. You give an operation a name, and we're in the Flinders, so it became Operation Flinders, and that was where it started. It seemed to be just this whirlwind concept of like, right, this is what we need to do now for these kids. We need to grab a bunch of army blokes, most of them were Vietnam vets. We need to get the police force involved because they are the law enforcers, and that's where we need to build that trust and show these kids that you can trust people in authority. We need to have the counsellors to be the support and to bring it back down a little bit. And we need to throw them out into an environment where it's back to basics. Certainly in her mind, she saw herself as, these are the things that worked for me. And surely if it worked for me, it's going to be able to work for these kids. I remember Pammy buying rations off her own family, our own credit cards. You know, we had our own car, our family car was the Flinders car. We had very little resources outside of the army stuff, so we just ran with that to start with. We had all of their gear, and the kids came up, and some of them were just given old army jungle greens. We started with 7 teams, I think it was, and we had about 6, 7, 8 kids per team, and we had 1 team leader and hopefully 2 counsellors, which are now support staff. My very first recollection was going out and being with a team out at Hannigan's Gap, where the abseiling was, and having the day with the kids and the team, and watching these kids suddenly have to put their trust into these big burly Star Force officers. You did have big barriers that were broken down, which were, I think, were very positives, because law and authority, a lot of kids had trouble with them.
The young people getting back on that bus to go home, and they are now empowered. They have self-confidence. They know they have the ability to deal with people. They'll realise that perhaps not all adults are there to make life difficult for them.
I'm always asked, do the kids change? And the answer to the question is, yes, they do, but what is change? Is change one of the participants saying thank you when you hand them something? Well, they'd never say thank you before in their life. Or is there that magic switch where they go from little Johnny, I'm such a bad boy, to little Johnny, I'm such a good boy? There are so many variations. of what change is.
You're not going to change the world with some of these kids, but you can still sow a seed that will let them think about something. And if you do that, you're halfway home.
On one occasion as a team leader, Pam came out in her own vehicle to pick me up to return me back to base. And whilst we were heading back in the early morning through the fog, she stopped the vehicle and got out her GPS, and she was looking out over a valley and looking at the view, and she explained to me what a wonderful view this is. And I agreed with her, it was a beautiful view. Unbeknown to me, she had actually taken the GPS out so that she could get a grid reference, because she knew she was ill at that time. I was unaware, and she was actually plotting the position that she wanted her ashes scattered. And that subsequently, that spot where I was with her that morning became Moonbeam's Rest.
Pam always wanted to walk the exercise to experience what the kids did, but she couldn't. She wasn't able to do that. She knew what we did, she'd seen what we did, but she was not able to walk. Carmen walked with me. I didn't find out till afterwards that Carmen carried Pam's ashes.
I just thought it was fitting that she would do one last trip around the exercise. And so I had a jar of Pammy and we squirreled it away in my pack, and we didn't make any comment to the kids or anything like that. We carried her ashes the whole way around, and we finished the exercise. We did a stopped and actually deviated to Moonbeam's Rest, where we gave where I would do a talk. So that was the first of the talks at Moonbeam's Rest, where all the kids came up to the rest.
At the end of the exercise, it was really touching for us that she came out and she said, "Here, Pam, you've walked an exercise in effect with this group of kids," and all the kids were tearing up because Pam's walked with us for this 8 days.
So yeah, Pammy did that one last trip, and that was a special exercise, especially walking with DK, who was one of the first ones with the family who I'd met when I first came involved heavily. Whenever the kids see an eagle up in the sky, that's her circling over the top and just keeping an eye on things. Her presence is always known, yeah.
Our navigation routes would always take us to Moonbeam's Rest. And like I think all team leaders, we can all recount having very momentous experiences with Moonbeam's Rest, where it's had a positive impact on the kids.
As much as it's about the kids, Operation Flinders would not be what it is without all the volunteers and all the adults that make it happen. From not only the team leaders and the counsellors and the people that walk with the kids, but it's all behind scenes, all the logistics of actually getting the rations out to the different stands.
I'm actually able to give back to society. I wasn't necessarily an angel as a young lad, and I could see these young lads had a lot of what I had, and I thought, no, I needed some good male role modelling, and I can provide that to them.
Every so often on an exercise, you come across a participant or a team, or even an ATL or a new person to Operation Flinders, and you can see the change, and you know that you're part of that change process.
Well, Pam gave me a purpose in life, and here I am nearly 30 years later, feeling quite content that I've done my bit giving back as well. So thank you very much, Pam.
What would Pam think 30 years on? She'd be gobsmacked, she'd be proud, and the fact that 8,000 young people have actually gone through the organisation is in itself mind-blowing.
I think Pam would be very proud and satisfied that her vision has been realised.
It really is quite amazing to think that near 30 years ago, Pammy was working in this old house, and then we moved up to Williamstown and we had Operation Flinders working from our back shed to now looking at the Edwardstown facility and what it has grown into. Pammy would be just blown away.
She'd be absolutely proud, she'd be tickled pink, she'd be proud as punch and proud as anything of what we've all done and what all the people in the background have done over the years.
And she would be blown away by the old hands, those that were there at the beginning with her, to know that they've carried on that legacy.
Proud.